camera across a little bit.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It's your two favorite guys, Dave and Dwarn. We're here with another Business Unscripted podcast. It's Friday morning. Today it's a 9:40 a.m. Eastern, and we are here to, we got some good stuff we want to talk about today. So one, we're going to talk about our weekly recap, but then we had a couple videos we wanted to react to. Dwarn's actually going to have a live reaction to one of them that I shared because he didn't have time to look at it. He was too busy working with some clients and things, but so we hope you are having a wonderful week. We had a great week. It's been a short turnaround from our last episode. So Dwarn, thanks for joining me again, man. How are things?
Things are good, Dave. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, we've had a couple of clients from Australia over, so it's been great spending some time with real people rather than doing all that virtual stuff, which we tend to do a lot of. So
in front of a camera all the time.
That's right. So it's kind of weird. I do a lot of daily meetups with these clients, and just to be able to get that conversation over a coffee and going out for a meal and having that in-person conversation goes a long way. So they've taken the time to come over for a week. I took a bunch of time to be there in person. So it was great. Really enjoyed it.
And I'm sure the staff loved it too. That's one of the things I think that a lot of people tend to forget is that staff love to just do things that isn't necessarily work related. They don't feel like a robot then, you know what I mean?
Well, that too. And even just the ability for a client to come over to the Philippines and meet them when they work with them every day is really huge for them. To be able to be appreciated. One thing which was really cool is the client brought over Tim Tams. So I'm not sure if you got those in the States, but they're like chocolate rectangular biscuits which are covered in chocolate, filled with all this awesome gooey goodness inside. And in Australia, we've got this thing called a Tim Tam Slam. So you get a hot coffee, you bite the corner and then the opposite corner off, and then you drink like a straw. And what it does, it brings all that hot coffee into the middle of the biscuit, makes it all mushy, and then you throw it in your gob and you eat it. Right. Well, it's all mushy and it kind of melts in your mouth. It's amazing. Super sweet goodness. And it's just like, if you got diabetes, well, you probably should avoid it. But if you don't have diabetes, you will have it.
Okay. Yeah. If you have high blood sugar or tend to die from those things, you might not want to try it. But
yeah, don't try it. I'm not recommending trying it if you have related sugar problems. But a bunch of new staff got to try it. They loved it. They thought it was great. But it's just those little moments that get that bonding. Tonight, just got back from having dinner. There was about 20 of us at dinner, staff with the clients, and it was great fun. They had a really good time. They all got to bond and catch up. Most of our staff work remotely still, so by choice. And that means that they don't get to catch up in person so much. So just the ability to catch up in person and have that conversation face to face, that was really huge. And it was great to see that again. Even my wife, who handles HR, she was having a great time walking around, chatting to people, says to me afterwards on the way home, so nice to talk to these guys again after so long.
Well, and it's funny because a lot of people like to work remote, but then again, I've had a lot of conversations recently too, where the staff kind of wants to have that camaraderie again. I feel like it's being missed, and I feel like, it's coming back around, which is good. I think so. It's good to hear that your team had a great time and all that. So what about recap? I know we talked on Monday. We wanted to kind of do a little bit more, kind of sharing and liking of some people's posts. We talked about that visibility thing.
I did it.
How do you feel like you did, this week,
I did. I did it, and I actually had some interesting feedback on that. So I did it because I had a pretty busy week. I was working with my clients who are over, doing a bit more than normal hands-on work with them. So I didn't get to do as much as I expected. So, but I got my 10. I got my 10 done. And I did it all on LinkedIn. And what I decided to do was just repost people's stuff without comments this time because I just didn't have the time. So what my process was liking, reposting. I had people reach out to me thanking me for resharing their post and starting a conversation with me again.
Nice. Now, was there anybody in particular? Were you doing it? Did you like pay attention to like a specific theme, or was it just anybody that you had saw that
scroll the news feed? Hey, that's great. I'm going to share that. That's kind of good. You know, I've shared one of their things this week. I might share another one. I probably got about 15 shares in this week, I think.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I kind of lost count, but I kind of something similar to you, where I was doing it on both Facebook, LinkedIn, where I would like and kind of share and even sometimes comment, you know, like, you know, hey, keep up the good work. Like this is, you know, something that's needed, you know, great article, something like just to, you know, kind of share it. And I got a couple people, you know, that thanked me as well. I think is important. But the idea now is that if you do it with longevity, you'll start to see like those people start showing up in your thread even more.
Yeah. And people are going to start to be, appreciative of that. And I saw that people are appreciative because, I mean, some of these posts only had 2 or 3 people comment, like or comment on them. And I guess almost none of them had a repost. So I was not reposting popular stuff that everyone else is reposting. I'm deciding to just, support people I know.
And let me ask you this. So you did 15, right? How much time do you think that actually took you? Like, what do you think
I did it between calls. Like, I had a couple of minutes here, did about 3 or 4, had another couple of minutes here and there. I did that over a couple of days and probably spent a maximum 10 minutes doing it.
Right.
It wasn't much.
It's not a lot of time. It's just you have to like train yourself to get into that sort of mindset, that mentality of doing it, right?
For me, it was just a case of like, I made the decision, let's try and do this with minimal effort. So let's not go and recreate a whole caption to go with it, which meant I had to really sit there and understand what was being said to make sure I formed an opinion, which would have taken longer. And I just didn't have that time this week. So that's most people, right? So I thought, what, I'm just going to do the bare minimum, just repost this and put it on my feed and let, I don't know how many 100 people. No, there's a lot more than 100 people that follow me, but whoever that is, right? Those people I'm connected with get to see it. But
I love it.
It obviously made a difference for these people who I did it for because I had people come back saying thanks. Hey, it's been a while. Haven't heard from you for a bit. What's going on? How are you?
And again, it's not like everyone that you do is going to get a result, but it's going to help in the long run. And when you make it a part of your operation, you make it a part of your daily routine. In the end, these things add up. And even if it's like a 2% increase into your ROI, like 2% multiplied by 10 different activities is a 20% increase. So there's no one thing that is going to give you everything that you need. Like that's the problem. Like everybody wants that one solution, that one impact, right? That one change. And it doesn't happen that way. And if somebody tried to sell you that, they're selling you a bunch of crock of shit. Like it just doesn't happen. There's so many things that are needed and required out of you as a business owner that you have to do it all, or you're not going to get the results. And that's the problem.
Very true. Very true. I mean, like you're talking about, getting shit advice from people when they try and tell you that you can do one thing to change everything in your life. It doesn't always work that way. Sure, you can do one thing that's going to make an impact, but when we start talking about what we're doing here, it's like one step in front of the other, and eventually you're going to get there. And I gave the advice to one of my clients from Australia who's visiting. I said, you're on LinkedIn. He goes, that article that you helped me out with back in December, November, whenever it was, he knew the numbers of people that interacted with that, but he hadn't really done much with it since. And he's a busy guy. I mean, he's running a business. So we had a conversation and I said, well, why don't you go through? You've got 30 odd customers that are signed up with monthly recurring services with you. Why don't you just go through, work out who the key stakeholders are in each of those businesses that you deal with, add them on LinkedIn. Then when you start posting stuff, they might see it. And as a part of it, why don't you just go on their page, and because you're following them now, you'll see their stuff, like and comment and share their stuff as well to your feed, and they're going to feel appreciated, which was really cool because part of what he wanted to do in his own mind with his marketing journey was do product highlights. and he wanted
Okay.
to customer highlights rather, where he actually does customer recognition in a newsletter that he sends out once a month. And I said, well, that's great. I said, but you could do customer recognition with every time you like and share a post of one of your customers on LinkedIn. They're going to appreciate that. And it's so quick and easy, and you don't need to generate a bunch of content for it. Just get started. It's going to take you a couple of minutes to jump on and get started with that, isn't it?
Well, and that's the big thing, is just getting started. So, putting in that in there, and we talked about it before. We talked about like calendar management, all that kind of stuff. Like just scheduling some time out for you is just the important thing, is to get yourself in that regimen, get yourself in that routine. That's how it's going to work. So, what about like the rest of the week? I know I got something to jump into the week, but before I do that, anything that you experienced throughout the week, or anything you want to kind of bring attention to?
No, look, I think for me, it was about having that conversation on Monday with you, made it very clear in my mind that I need to put some effort into doing this, because I'd made the commitment to do it. And
Yeah.
whilst I didn't put time scheduled in my calendar for it, I still found the time to do it. And I think legitimately, I probably did another 3 reposts just before this call. I sat down,
Nice.
I was waiting to get on the call. I'd sat in front of the computer 2 minutes early, scrolled on this screen, click, 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 cool.
Right.
And it didn't take too much. I mean, so I think
Yeah.
stop making excuses, get off the couch, just start doing something. You start doing one thing, it's still more than what you were doing the day before, right?
Oh, for sure, 100%. So, and it's one of those things. So for me this week, we had a great conversation, been kind of paying attention to the sharing and doing all that stuff. But one of the other things, I have a tax client of mine, and he is like a mindset sort of. His company's called Zen Stoic, from Victor, and he did this kind of like beta like group, sort of like the unshakable mind is what he called it. And I always sometimes am a little bit hesitant to some of these things, because as a positive guy, I'm like, man, I got this. Like, I don't need any of this, other stuff. But was surprising to me is I went into it. He preempted it. I went into it with an open mind. Like, I'm just going to go in. I'm not going to have any preconceived notions.
Yeah.
And I went through the whole process, and part of it is a lot of journaling, and I love journaling. I love writing. I do it a lot. Probably don't do it as much as I should, but I do. And that was part of the process. Was a lot of writing and really like putting your like unfiltered thoughts onto paper. And one of the questions that stood out was kind of like, what is a common theme of what you're seeing in the negative, the errors that are happening right now in your life, or the downfalls that are happening. A couple of sort of common themes I saw. I think in the 3 minutes I wrote, I think I used the word fail or failure like 3 or 4 times. So that was one of those
Wow.
underlying beliefs where it's like, I am a failure, right? Another one was, I feel like people deserve more than what I feel I can give them. So now I feel like I'm not good enough. And another one was, I'm not going to be successful, right? And what I come and it goes through this whole questioning. I'm not going to talk through this whole program because it's
No.
I'm not going to do that a disservice. But what it came down to is for me, in my mindset of why I was holding on to these beliefs, because when you hold on to a belief, Victor talks about how it's because it's giving you some sort of benefit. Otherwise, why would you keep it? So the benefit that I understood now is like, I have these beliefs because it was like a safety net for me. It was like, when something doesn't work out, I can go back to these beliefs and say, yeah, it's just because I'm not good enough, right? Or it's
It's
just
a blaming. You
because.
got something to blame it on, right?
Exactly. And in reality, then it was harming a lot of my relationships. It was harming a lot of other things. And so I was able to replace that with, like a positive, belief that still accomplished the same sort of goals of the negative, but it now puts me in a rejuvenated sense. I can see that these are just thoughts. These aren't the actual reality, when you actually step back objectively and see that these things are not true. So it's one of those things I went through this week that was really sort of liberating, and I'm actually gonna, down below the video, I'll put his, when we do the recording, I'll put his link to his company. But Victor and
That'd be
Zen
cool.
Stoic, I would definitely speak to his. It was well worth the 90 minutes I put in. And then you know also this week was a lot of outreach, paying attention to what we talked about on Monday, like just being more in tune with, as I'm scrolling, if I'm looking for things on Facebook, I'm looking for people that are in my network that have a business or that are posting some content. You see a lot more on LinkedIn than you do on Facebook. Facebook's more like,
Yeah.
here's pictures of my toes, or here's pictures of my new outfit, right?
Your toes. What's on your feed?
I just made it. I don't know why toes came up, but first thing that came to mind when I thought of that.
Sure.
But you're going to see a lot more of the business stuff on LinkedIn and things like that. But what we want to do next for everybody, so the week's been going well. Dwarn and I were talking post show on Monday about other ways that we can like add value. And it's funny, me and you were constantly sharing stuff back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my light just went out. Let me turn that back on. We were constantly sharing things back and forth, which I think which is why we wanted to kind of do some of these like reaction videos where we're going to share a video with you guys all. I think my light is now dead, so maybe I'll have to charge it next time.
Oops.
And then we're gonna share it with you all and kind of give our. What's that?
We can still see you. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm good. It's okay. I'm just a little darker than I used to be. But and then share some value with you and why it was important to us and why we wanted to share it so that you guys can see it. So I'm going to share this first video I thought was really interesting. I shared with Dwarn. So let's watch that real quick, and then we'll kind of give some feedback on that. And so I think for this one, right, it's pretty self-explanatory. But Dwarn, when you see this video, like, does something pop to your mind? Like, damn, that's so true.
It is. If you surround yourself with like negative thoughts, like you were talking about just moments ago, just without even realizing you were harboring these negative thoughts of failure, not being good enough,
right.
That shit's contagious. That stuff just spreads. If you're around people who are unsupportive of your journey and where you're going, if you're not supporting yourself in your journey and surrounding yourself and reading the right information and watching the right things, and if you're making excuses for not getting where you want to be, that shit's contagious, and that will definitely spread. There's good things. Like I was always told that if you want to, and I might get this wrong, but if you want to ripen fruit, put bananas in there with it, right? Ripen avocados and stuff. Put in with some bananas, and there's some sort of chemical reaction that happens that helps it ripen quicker. But it's the same goes here. Like you see, if something's rotten, it's just going to spread. If you have one rotten apple, it's going to spread. In this case, strawberries. And I've never seen a rotten strawberry. I don't think they last long enough with my family. They eat them so quick.
Well, and I think it's not even like that necessarily the rotten strawberry. It's the fact that it obviously has bacteria and a virus, negative thinking, right?
And it just spreads.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So, and I'm just putting my light back up here. To me, this speaks to your circle. And if you have a strong, positive, like circle around you, you're going to get more from that. But if you're look at your circle and it's, no offense, but if it's people that are doing things that you don't want to be doing, that are like working minimum wage jobs, or that talk meanly all the time, or that talk and degrade other people, you're going to become that. But if you can surround yourself with the people that are trying to level up, that are doing better for themselves, you will eventually become exactly that. And that's what this video kind of really meant to me when I saw it. That's why I wanted to share with you, is because right, me and you, we have the same mindset. So me and you surrounding ourselves more and more with each other are going to drive each other to do more. It's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, is because we want to surround us with, and our audience that we're growing, the same way. It's the same way you surround yourself with your friend group. If your friends are not doing what you want to do, and they're calling you to and trying to take your attention away from your business or your growth or whatever you're trying to do, they're not going to be the right person. You're going to become who they are, and if that's not who you want to be, you got to do a little self-reflection in the mirror.
Well, that's in life in general too, right? I mean, as you grow and mature, you have different groups of friends, and you outgrow friends. It's just the reality of things. You're going to have a group of friends who start to get married off and have kids. And there's going to be that one or two friends in the groups always wanted to catch up and go out for drinks. And drinks doesn't end up being 2 or 3 drinks. It ends up being 16 to 20 drinks. ends
Right.
up being a 3-day bender, whatever that may be. And, you know, we've all seen the movie The Hangover. That shit can happen. It's real. Like, maybe not to that level of extreme, but, you know, it happens.
Right.
But I mean,
It
like,
sometimes happen. Yes.
yeah, I mean, if you're trying to be a good family man with a good and to be good, you know, to your wife and be, you know, true to your wife and have, you know, their time there, it's quality time with the kids, going to their sporting events, you can't do that. But if you surround yourself with people who are like-minded and have that same sort of feeling and that same sort of drive and push, you're going to be able to feel more relaxed doing what you're doing and not feel like you're missing out on something and not ruin what you've got because you are being driven into those circles to do those things that
Right.
aren't so healthy anymore.
No,
Not to
I
say it
agree.
wasn't always healthy. At the time, it might have been good for you and healthy for the, you know, where you were at that time, but you do grow. And,
Right.
you know, I remember one time I was watching a video, and sorry, I'm going on a bit here, Dave, but one of the founders of Airbnb was on a interview, and he was talking about how he got really, really lonely during the growth of his business because people basically just assumed he was really busy, which he was, and just stopped contacting him. And because he kept saying, no, he can't come out, he's working. So he suddenly found himself surrounded by nobody, and he
Right.
had no friends, he had no, you know, no one to spend time with. And then he found a mentor, someone who understood him, someone like us who we're on the same journey or a similar journey. And he found himself able to relate with that person. And he realized that suddenly you've got friends for one purpose, which help you on that, you know, be level in that area and that part of your life. But sometimes in business, you need to have another group which helps drive and motivate and push you to that next level. But if you've got a friend who isn't supportive of one of your journeys in either one of those circles, then that can be a real problem. And it can be just like those strawberries. It can just be really a downer. It can pull you down. You know, in
Right.
your case, if you've got someone sitting there who's always saying, yeah, Dave, you are a bit of a failure, mate. I mean, remember that time you tried doing this and it didn't work out? And he's
Right.
reminding you of that all the time. Well, you know, that's someone you'd probably want to drop because that reminder is not helping you.
No, I agree with you there. So, and it is going to be lonely sometimes, you know, or people aren't going to understand what you're trying to do, and it's fine because they're not on the same journey as you are. And I think that's the
Exactly.
ultimate goal is they're not on the same journey. And that's why it is important to have those partners in your life that understand, support you. They may not be trying to do the same thing yourself, but they understand the
Yeah.
journey that you're on, and they're not trying to pull you in a different direction.
They'll listen,
So
they'll support in their own
yeah,
way.
right. So this next video, I've always talked about Gary Vee, and I think one of the biggest recurring themes that I hear or when I'm talking to people is what's going on with social media. And so I saw this video, and Dwarren, you're going to live react to it. But there's two parts of this short video, and again, we'll link the full video in the description to the full recording, whether it's audio or video on YouTube and stuff. But I think it's important to kind of listen to what Gary Vee says here on the 4 ways that you can win here heading into 2025. So
All right.
let's take a listen to this, and then I will we'll go from there. Let me slow it down. Sorry, I listened. Let's try it again.
I
I
actually
started
can't
at
hear
one
it,
and a
Dave.
half.
I'm not hearing that. So we got some volume we can pass through.
Okay. Oh, you're not hearing the
No, I'm
volume?
not hearing that.
Oh, see,
This
so
is the
this is
first
why
time
we
we've
do.
done this, guys. So just bear with us.
Yeah, that's that. So did you hear the volume of the first one then, or no? Or I guess there was some music going on. There wasn't any talking.
Yeah, on the first one, I
Um,
already watched it, so I was more focused on the visual than the audio. But I didn't hear any audio on the
so
first one either.
you should see, but let me.
You can see my door opening in
Obviously,
the background as my son tries to creep in
as he
behind.
tries to creep in behind you.
And we've
I
spanned to
love it.
wide view in the background with my spare. I've got a meeting clothes sitting there hanging on the door.
Oh, I got to share the tab. That's why I was sharing the window. So
Sorry, guys.
you should be able to. Let's restart this. Thanks for your patience, everybody. But here we go. Live tech troubleshooting, live on air.
Something similar than you is going to pop off way more than you next year. That's 100%. You can't spend a second on that. That's one. Two, challenging yourself to do different shit. The biggest thing that catches so many people here up is they're not doing different shit. They like do dance, they do fashion, they do, get ready with me. They get whatever you do, you get caught because at some point it becomes mundane. And so like not having the self-esteem or the confidence to try completely different shit because you're scared it's gonna underperform to what you're used to is the hidden poison for so many in here.
I think that one, is important really quick. What he says, right, is that we all kind of get comfortable in our path. So like, if you're comfortable doing a podcast, that's all you do. You don't do any text, you don't do any, clips, you don't do any just audio, right? Or if you're comfortable, as he was saying, like, just doing vlogs, like you don't transition and try to do different things. And I think that's another one thing that people can get and sort of broaden their horizon, in terms of the next step and next stage.
I totally agree. I actually saw this week when I was chatting with one of my clients, and the conversation went around of, I know I need to change what I'm doing because what I'm doing isn't getting me the results I want. I'm not sure if I want to do that work to get the results that I want,
right,
or hire someone to do that for me. And it was an interesting realization when that was said, because it was like, well, let's try doing it for you and see what that looks like. And maybe the combination's a hybrid solution. Right. And, but that realization, that was really big. And we see this all the time with people who won't get out of their comfort zone. I mean, we see this in marketing a lot, or websites, where you've got one company that does website design. They've been building the same type of website for 15 years. And when you ask them why, because it works. Well, it worked 15 years ago. Might have worked 10 years ago. Is it really working as well, or is there something better and you've just not tried it because
not adapted it, right? You haven't
that it works.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I agree with you. All right.
Yeah. I love it.
All right, let's go to number 3.
Live social shopping. I could not push you more to get serious about affiliate and live selling. Like if there's any way you can get into that with what you do, you should. Like if you're a magician, create some fucking deck of cards and sell that shit on, like it is a big thing that you should start learning because it's going to eat up a lot of oxygen. The other by far biggest mistake most of you are making is you're not on enough platforms.
So right there, I think those were 3 and 4, right? 1 was social selling. And if you don't know what social if I could speak, social selling is like WhatsApp, TikTok has their TikTok shop, right? Utilizing those platforms to present something as well as then sell it. And Gary has talked about this a lot, where he sees, Facebook eventually is going to have this soon. YouTube will probably have this soon, if they don't already. But it's going to become a big thing in 2025 and beyond. Is, instead of going to like an Amazon, people logging into apps and buying stuff and why, right? And making it a unique product. And in the full video, when you go and watch the full video, he gives a little bit more in depth about this as well. But I think social selling is going to be good. The question is, how can you do that for your company? And Dwarn, you have any initial ideas? I think that's going to be the biggest thing. People are going to say, I can't sell.
I've got a client. They've got 146 appliance stores, physical stores, and they've got one online platform which they use for their live selling events. And they've actually got a third-party piece of software which basically streams that shit to all the different platforms. And it's not a cheap platform to get. Like, the software's not cheap. But when I asked him about it, I said, how's it working? He goes, oh, we're doing it every week. It's like, oh, wow, really? He goes, yeah, we're killing it. To the point we actually just quoted out this last week to upgrade their server to be 125% faster to handle the load from the live selling event. Because on a live selling event, it blows up and becomes unusable, their website. Yet prior to that, It's totally fine. Never goes over 50% use peak.
And I mean, ultimately, like, think about, like, when you do these live events, like, and Gary talks about this in the full video, you don't just sell your same stuff. Like, you have specific things for those sessions. Like, so, like, I'm sure, without even knowing anything about this company, they probably do a special during the live event where it's like, only during that live event can you get this piece of furniture for X amount. And you got to be on, and there's only 4 of them available, right? Or 5
And this
of them,
is
whatever
not
it is.
new, Dave. This is not
No.
new. If we think about this, right? This is what a live webinar selling event is all about. How many times have we been to a webinar where that's, oh, we've only got 10 packages. You got to take the last 10 packages. They're not going to be available after an hour. We're going to count them down. You are forced to buy at the end of a webinar. This is a very common technique that's used. And it's no different to when you used to get a catalog. I don't know if you get them in the US anymore, but you get a catalog delivered at home printed with all the specials for the next 2 weeks or 1 month. And you go through it and you go, oh, I'm going to go down to the store and buy this. It's no different.
I don't know if I mean, I know what you're talking about, but I don't think that's the biggest thing anymore.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think
it's definitely not with like
this
online
is easier.
and all that kind of stuff. Like,
but you know how expensive it was to do that.
Think of like auction houses, right? Like, that's kind of the same approach where auctions get people to buy, and if you can show people, like, hey, like, doing a live auction, right? So, like, having people, but where I think if you're like, even like your B2B or your B2C, like, take a look at your approach, figure out what it is that you typically sell, and then how could you sell a product or something using one of these softwares, whether it's a book or a t-shirt that's got some cool sayings on it or something. You could potentially get into this game no matter what you do.
My wife during COVID, this was huge in the Philippines during COVID. Don't know about the rest of the world, but during COVID, my wife was buying handbags during COVID, which were being sold on live selling events. Clothes, people would put them on their mannequins, or they'd have their person there trying them on and showing how the clothes looked.
So I feel like live selling, we hit that. And then the fourth one that he mentioned here, that was, not being in enough platforms. Now, if you're just starting out, right, a lot of these people that are in this room, just to put context to it, these are all influencers that are part of this kind of group with Gary. So they probably all have teams around them that are telling them that so for Gary to say, hey, you should be on 7 platforms, that, I agree with it if you have the room and the capacity to do it. But if you are by yourself and you don't have a team and it's just you, focusing your attention 1 or 2 and maximizing the benefit from that is going to be great. So while I think his advice is good here, if you're a small business owner and you don't have a team to manage those for you, don't try to do too much. And I think that's where you can get lost, which is a good thing to point out here, Dwarren, is like, some people will watch this video that's a small business owner by themselves and say, I need to be on 7 different platforms.
Yeah.
And you don't have the time, you don't have the capacity.
Exactly. It can be done in multiple ways. I mean, if you can get on those platforms by doing a single stream and using a piece of software that pushes out to all the platforms, awesome. Like you were talking about BuzzFeed the other day. BuzzFeed for podcasters allows you to push out to all the platforms and get your platform out there and push it. There is software out there that can do the same thing with live selling. Like I mentioned before, a client's using it.
This isn't live selling. So this is just general. So
yeah,
this is like a business page, like posting their content.
If it's just a business page, just don't push it. Just start with the most simple thing. Think about where are your customers going to be hanging out more initially, and just go fish there. Go and post there. Go start there. And then as you start to get more funding and sales, invest more into maybe some people to help you get into those and get that team grown to get into those other areas. But yeah, it's great to say, I want to be selling $1 million worth of merchandise by the end of the year, but set yourself the goals on how you can realistically do it and make sure it's something that's achievable. And some people are doing really, really well on one platform and go, I don't need any other platforms. I'm just killing on this one.
Again, so what I wanted to point out with this is, like, I agree with it. Yes, if you have the capacity, the more platforms you can be on. But what I also want to caveat it with, and what my feedback on this is, don't try to force yourself to do something that you don't have the capacity or the know-how to do yet. Like, pick the 1 or 2 and maximize the shit out of those 2. That's going to give you the biggest benefit. Then you can start adding a 3rd and a 4th and a 5th and a 6th and a 7th. But what's going to happen, and I hear it, is that they're like, oh, well, I saw a video that said we have to be on 7 platforms. Yes, you're right. How much hours do you have, right? How much capacity do you have? Well, it's just me, and I have like 3 hours to commit a month. Well, you should probably just focus on one, right? Or utilizing something that could push out to maybe 2 or 3 to really
What's
maximize
interesting
the
about
effort
that?
and then add.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on there, Dave. I think what this tells you is this: people have got lots of advice on all the different platforms. We have advice. Gary Vee's got advice. Hell, there's hundreds of thousands of people out there giving you advice. You don't have to take all the advice as gospel. Take the advice that works for you. Set your own, and by then you should have already got your own goals already in place, and see what aligns with getting you to your goals. And just pick the stuff that's going to work for you. And you don't need to implement everything, because not every piece of advice is cookie cutter and going to fit. Some of the stuff, like you mentioned, selling a book or something, right? For someone selling a book, then it might be a live event where you read a passage of your book, and that gets people interacting with you in the book on a live session, and you can sell it. But I mean, if you're selling a cake, what are you going to do? Sit there and eat a cake live? I mean, that ain't going to work so well for you, right?
No, yeah. So you kind of have to figure it out. Absolutely. So, I mean, one of the things too, that when you're watching any of these advices, like there's tons of videos out there to anything like that, is put context around it. So for example, this video, that if you were to just pick it up, and obviously it's titled 4 Ways to Win on Social Media in 2025, tactical advice. Well, if you were to look at that and you're a small business owner, you're like, oh my God, these are the things I got to do. But when you put it in context, that he is talking to a room full of influencers that have teams around them because they're successful, well, now it makes sense why he's saying you should be on 7 different platforms. And you could also probably find another video of Gary talking about, hey, you should also be, if you're just starting out, pick 1 or 2 and maximize that before you start adding, because he has.
Exactly.
So you have to just put context into everything that you're listening to. And then how does that apply to your life? Is it you now, or is it where you should be working towards and striving towards in the future?
Yeah, and don't stop at one video that tells you what you should be doing. Go and do a little bit more of your own research, cross-reference it. Even if it's the same person, go and check if they're consistent in what they're saying. Because some people are not consistent in what they're saying. Make sure they're actually the topical authority on what they're talking about.
And again, consistency also goes with context. This is where a lot of people like to just, they don't consider context in their thought process, right? They hear somebody say, like for example, this particular instance, they'll see one video of Gary saying you should be on all platforms. They'll see another video of maybe Gary or somebody else saying, hey, you need to be on 1 or 2 to start. And they're like, well, see, he doesn't know what he's talking about because he said 2 different things. But in reality, he's talking to 2 different types of people.
Exactly.
Right. And that's where context really matters. Yep.
Yeah. And you see this in the media and in life in general. Yeah. How many times have you had your kids come in and say something to you? Dad, you said this. And I was like, hold on. When did I say that? Well, you said it when, no, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about this, or I was referring to this. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Context is huge. And I think it's lost a lot in conversations and stuff. So there's a lot more I wanted to get to, but we both have a hard stop, and I think we've covered some good stuff here. Right? We talked about mindset. We talked about this week, in terms of our generality and what happened, but who you surround yourself with that strawberry video. If you're watching if you're listening to the podcast, it was a video, because obviously you couldn't hear it, a video of a strawberry that had a virus on it. And the caption simply read, you are who you surround yourself with. And when it attached it to 2 fresh looking strawberries, within the time lapse of, a couple days, the other 2 became sick and basically withered away because of the virus, and it just spread. So that's why we're talking about, like, who do you surround yourself with is important. And then here, the 4 ways to win, like you have it, like you pay attention to what you're posting, do more, be uncomfortable, social selling, think about social selling as an option. And then the 4th one was, consider adding more social media platforms as you are comfortable and as you have the capacity. But starting on social media is important. Like, getting started with those 1 or 2 are important. And then you can add 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But, in closing, Dwan, what what is something that you really want to work on like this week before our next conversation on Friday? Then we'll kind of recap and kind of hold ourselves accountable. Just like you all, if you're listening to this, like what's something you want to accomplish? Like either drop it wherever you're listening to this, drop it in the comments, drop it, in the feed or wherever it is that you're watching. But what's something, Dwarren, yourself that you're going to be working on and paying attention to this week?
Look, I'm going to continue doing the posting and the reposting and the sharing, I think, but I'm going to put a little bit more effort in this time. I'm going to actually put some captions. I'm going to show a little bit more effort in what I do. And I'm going to see if I get a better reaction to what I'm getting already. I want to see if it's bigger. And look, there's still people's stuff that I'm not reposting because I just feel a little uncomfortable reposting their stuff because, I may not be as close to them as somebody I think I should be reposting of content. But then I think I'm going to try and get over. I'm going to start sharing some uncomfortable posts. That stuff that I wouldn't normally be posting and people that I'd support. I'm just going to try and share some of their stuff as well and see what happens. And as a part of that, I'm going to start trying to book some meetings with the people who actually reach out to me because I haven't done anything with the people who've reached out to me except for reply to one or two of them. So I'm going to actually build up and try and catch up to them and just see where they're at. Because sometimes we haven't spoke with some of these people for months, a year, and they could be in a completely different place. And we don't know unless we get on and have a chat with them. And that was a realization that I had while I was doing this.
Bring up a good point. What they typically say, and what my advice for a lot of people is like, if you haven't talked to somebody in like 90 to like 120 days, which is like 3 to 4 months, their situation could be completely different than when they turned you down or, were busy before. So always trying to re-engage people around that 3-4 month mark is important because their life situation may change, their business situation may change. So, their answer may be a lot differently. And if you just think, well, they turned me down like, last year, well, that can happen in a year. Trust me, I know.
Oh, yeah.
So, reach out, reconnect, do all that I think is important. And like yourself, I'm going to continue to pay attention to what I see on my feed and actually be mindful of things that I'm actually doing. And then obviously continuing to ways to, make a little bit of improvements here in the podcast, as well as, watching some videos. I think we're going to include these recap, or reaction videos more often and kind of giving our thoughts and critique on some of these things and making it relevant to you all who are listening. And then also, I got a lot of follow-up meetings next week. So I just want to, just make sure I follow through with what I learned this week about, I am worth it, right? I am, and if somebody turned you down, it's not necessarily a talk about you as an individual. It's their loss, right? If you know that you can bring value, then it's technically their loss by not, engaging with you and working with you. So, but Dwarren, it was a great conversation. We'll be back next Friday at 8:15 a.m. We're actually going to kind of go back to our normal time. We had some obviously things with clients and stuff, but we're going to be 8:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time next Friday. If there's any questions or anything you want us to cover, like drop a comment, ask questions live as well. So if you're listening, and if you want to, be on the podcast, there's going to be times where Dwarren can't be here because of things happening. I'm more than happy to have some co-hosts. And we can talk about different topics, anything that you want as well. But Dwarren, any last thoughts, my friend?
No, look, just happy to be here. And I just want to make a little special mention. I love the logo that you've put together. That's really cool. The Business Unscripted logo. That's very cool, man.
You helped. Yeah.
I know I helped with a bit of it, but the gold and the blue, I like it. It's very regal.
Like it stands out, right? It's like
it does, man. It pops. It looks really great.
Well, I appreciate it. And if you've made it this far in the video or the audio, like we appreciate you being here. We hope one or two things kind of stood out to you and that you can kind of take it and implement it in your life. That's ultimately why we're doing this, not only to talk about like our journeys, but hopefully you can learn something from the things that we encounter on a regular basis. So until next Friday, I hope you guys have a wonderful week and we'll see you all later. We love you. We appreciate you and hope you have a great day.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Dave.